But it was interesting because my father had fallen short of his Eagle Scout. He was from this little town of Galvic, Illinois, and the only place to swim was a man-made lake, Lake Calhoun. And the dam burst, and the lake went dry, which stayed that way for 20-some years. But I got in. I was a really active girl. I had gotten my Star Scout and was moving towards trying to do my Life Scout, and I'd got around 12 or so merit badges. Now, if you've never been in scouting, merit badges are these things you got for pursuing certain activities and accomplishments in different areas. And the one I remember best was the weather merit badge, okay? No, W-E-A-T-H-E-R, not weather like whether or not to stay awake during the sermon, but weather. And one of the neat things was, okay, I had to know the different cloud types. You know, there are like three basic types of clouds, okay? Cumulus, like this. I thought I had more stratus and cirrus clouds. You know, those are stratus clouds, and I don't have a picture of a cirrus cloud here. Cirrus are those things that almost look like feathers up there, with the very fine things. And I swear, whether it was air pollution or Al Gore, where are you when we need you, global warming or what, I swear I hadn't seen cirrus clouds for years and years and years. But one Friday a couple of years ago, I was working out in my garage, and I look out and there's beautiful cirrus clouds up in the sky. And indeed, I saw some just the other day, these beautiful, beautiful cirrus clouds. But clouds can go from one form to another. Thunder clouds are cumulus clouds that keep absorbing moisture as hot air rises, and you get this other kind of a cloud. They can be metamorphosed from one form of cloud to another. And of course, water itself is in different forms. I mean, we all know. I mean, Sandra, can I get away with something about engineers? Where are you? Oh, okay, can I make a joke about it? For those of you who aren't engineers, there are three forms of water. Can I get away with that?
I don't have my hearing aids.
Okay. Well, no, but we all know that water. There's the solid form, which is ice, or the liquid form, which is water, or the gaseous form, which is water vapor or steam. And water can metamorphose. You don't have to melt for ice to become water vapor. And those of you who do not spend the 114-degree summers we have, nonetheless have seen how water vapor can go from water vapor to solid as you scrape the frost off your windshields in the past. Clouds and metamorphosis are two of the things that just jump out at me today. In our scripture lesson, we read this. He was transfigured, metamorphosed. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as dazzling as light. This is a problematic story for me, the story of the transfiguration, not the least of which is, seriously, how would Peter and James and John have recognized Moses and Elijah? There are few surviving photographs of either. And the Jews would not have made representations of either. But put that aside for a moment. That's kind of a smart aleck comment. Metamorphosed is the word that the writers of the New Testament, using a particular form of Greek known as Koine Greek, use. And those of you who have taken Latin will recognize that it's a Latin word as well as a Greek word. And indeed, Koine Greek and Latin are very, very closely related once you get past the alphabet. Yet the description after metamorphosed isn't about a change in form, like going from ice to water for water. It's a change in appearance. Why would the writers have used this word metamorphosed? and then gone on to describe the appearance of Jesus. And what I want to ask is, do we miss the point of the story? Is the story about the objective appearance, what anybody would have seen in Jesus, is changing? Or is the story about a metamorphosis in the disciples themselves in this experience? Was it not that Jesus' appearance was changed, but that something changed within the disciples so that they perceived Jesus differently from the way they had been able to perceive Jesus before? And if that's the case, is that giving us a message that we can be metamorphosed, that we can be changed and transformed through our encountering Jesus? And I was going to say alone, but bear with me. Bear with me. Is the story really about us being changed by encounter with Jesus, and not about Jesus' appearance changing? Some of you, how do we get this encounter? How do we get changed? How do we get metamorphosed? Okay. Well, some of you may have had, and this sounds somewhat oxymoronic, but some of you may have had the blessed experience of lightning striking you, so to speak. Eureka! It's Jesus. And I'm not putting it down. If any of you have had that experience, God bless you, and be grateful and thank you for it. Some of you may say, well, I haven't had any experience. In which case, part of my task is to help you ultimately have the kind of experience that I believe that I had when I kind of got there. Now, in my case, I'd always been a believer, but I honestly think that it was more than anything through prayer. Not prayer in which I was consciously seeking to encounter anything, but prayer in which, frankly, I was doing what we do in our confession earlier in the service today. Prayer in which I was apologizing to God for my, well, let's be blunt, sins is not that bad a word. Okay? You know I don't preach hellfire and all that, so you know when I say sins, it doesn't have a Billy Sunday aspect to it. But praying to God, Dad, I am sorry that I was such an where's Annabelle when I need her? Such an impatient and unthoughtful individual. And in those prayers, realizing that there's this subtle, it's okay. Do better next time. And in that way, encountering Jesus not as a figure in a painting or as somebody you just read about on Sunday mornings, but encountering Jesus is there. Jesus wasn't transformed. I was transformed into being able to see Jesus better. I alluded already to something, and this would not be in my text because of the timing here, but a week ago last Friday, I got word that a cousin of mine, much younger cousin, she was just 55, had died after an illness that started when she was 14. It was very much like ALS, but it wasn't ALS, and finally she couldn't breathe anymore. I'm the oldest of cousins in 3 different families. The third comes about. This particular family with the most cousins is actually my stepmother's family, but I'm the oldest cousin, and nobody ever holds my, that I'm not a blood relative doesn't matter to anybody. Good concept of family. That I'm not a blood relative doesn't matter to anybody. And you know, and I've been really good. I've gone to Mass twice in the last 8 days. You know, last Sunday in Alexandria with my granddaughter, but the funeral Mass yesterday outside of Dallas. And, you know, the hymns are, with one exception, they're hymns that we sing. Verna Boyle would have been pleased.
With one exception.
With one exception, okay. I don't, and it wasn't one that I know, okay. It wasn't one that I know. But of course, in a Catholic church, you look up in front and you see Jesus on the cross. And I remain very much a Protestant where Jesus isn't on the cross. But I think that with the empty cross, we Protestants too easily forget what to me and what to Paul, the Apostle Paul, is the central thing that Jesus did, which was go to the cross for us. Jesus went to the cross for us. Clouds and metamorphoses. We have these clouds here. Isn't Jesus like the sun that burns away the clouds or lifts the morning fog for us? Does that not metamorphose us when Jesus does that for us? I guess I'm not sure what the writer of these stories did. They must have originated from Mark because they're in all three of the Synoptic Gospels. But generally these stories are to teach us something. And so, as I say, I think this story is not about the change in Jesus' appearance. It is about the change in the disciples being able to see Jesus, and with the hope that you and I are metamorphosed so that we can better grasp the presence of Jesus, what Jesus did for us in the past, and what he does by being present for us today. Let us see him through whatever clouds are fading away. And in his name, amen.